Hello friends, welcome to the this subject's last chapter, that is thermometry. In this thermometry, we are going to understand that the various topics which are related to the temperature and its measurement. So in this chapter, what we are going to see is nothing but the concept of the heat and the temperature, then the some principles of the thermometry, also the temperature scales and its interconversions between the various scale bars. Then later we will understand that the principle and the construction, also the and its working of the various thermometers or various types of the thermometers and its working principles and constructions, and at the end we will be having the some kind of the numericals over it. Okay, so now the first topic is something like an introduction corresponding to it. Now what we can see here in the introduction is something like, okay, temperature is generally our very familiar thing, right? So during this pandemic we used to have always the measurement of the body temperature and so on and so forth, right? And the other related thing to the temperature is nothing but the heat, right? So though this heat and temperature looks to be the same or the very similar or interrelated related to each other, but there is a quite of the little bit difference between it, right? So now obviously the accurate measurement of the temperature uh, of any kind of the subject or else any kind of the substance or the body is one of the important branches of the this heat, which is part of the physics, right? So now, and many times it is also necessary to measure the high temperature as well as the low temperature of the body, because these are the very two extremities which are very important in the physics perspective, right? So when we are going to use this temperature measurements and as well as the heat, what we should have the a necessary construction of the suitable temperature scale bar, right? So we should have the suitable temperature scale bar to measure the or note down the temperatures of the various substances or the body. Okay, so now while just scale which we are going to choose to measure the temperature, must be the precise one, consistent one, and must be the accurate one, right? So the precise, obviously we should get the correct reading. Consistent, so the successive reading should not get changed, right? So it should give us the repeated reading should not differ, and the accurate one. Okay, so these are the something like properties which that measurement should possesses, right? So now, when we are assigning the temperature of the body just by touching, or the what we can say is the sensation of that object by human sense, I am just measuring, right? So what we used to have, we used to compare it with our body temperature, whether is a hot or the cold one as compared to, so the temperature gradient or the temperature difference gives us the whether it is body is hot or the cold, and we can just say quality relay the, okay, with the object is hot or the cold one, but we do not get the much information quantitatively, right? So and accurately as well. So what we can have, one way of the measurement or the accurate measurement, I can say, is nothing but the use of the thermometers, which is a properly calibrated one. Okay. So now this temperature is actually the measure of the kinetic energy that particle possesses. So how much amount of the kinetic energy the particle possesses is the measure of it, right? So in the thermometry, what we are going to understand that, okay, it is a process of measuring the temperature and the various calculations which are based on the conversion from the one scale bar to the another one. So this is actually the chapter's name, right? So thermometry, right? So it's something like the process of measuring temperature and its various calculations which are based on the based on the conversion of the temperature from the one scale power to the another one. Then in this present topic, which will deals with the various things already I have discussed in the introduction or starting only. Now let's try to understand that the what is mean by the, or what is the concept of the heat and the temperature, right? So the concept and the heat actually studied together in the science, right? We used to study, and which are somewhat related, but they are not the same one. Okay, so they are not alike. Okay, these terms are we used to use them very common, and it's in our day to day life. But there exists a fine line which demarcates heat from the temperature. So the difference between the heat and temperature, we are going to understand this within this topic, right? So what is heat? Heat is generally the one form of the energy. So generally we used to get confused between these always heat and the temperature. Example just I can give you here is something like a red hot spark from the fire is at much higher temperature than the bowl of the boiling water, but the bowl of the but that contains the very less energy. So what happens exactly inside it? The spark will not injure us if it is falls on our body or hand, but boiling water with certainly do so. So what happens that spark will not hurt but or injure us, but the boiling water does it certainly. So this is difference actually between the having the temperature and the heat, right? So let's try to understand what is it. So the another example we can give for this is something like the can of the cola from the our refrigerator, right? So the summer is going on, so what we can understand that can of the cola, right? So we used to have and if we just keep that cola on the can of the cola on the kitchen, and what happens that its temperature rises rapidly initially and then more slowly until the temperature of that cola equals the room temperature, reaches to the room temperature. On the other hand, what we can say in the similar way, what we can say temperature of the cup of the hot coffee, right? So what happens is that if we left sitting on this table, and that temperature of that coffee falls, okay, so because it falls and it also reaches to the room temperature. So now what happens in this case? Changes in the temperature is because of the transfer of the heat from the one system to its surrounding, and that transfer of the energy is nothing but the heat. So how it is measured? Heat is generally measured in the calorie. Okay, another unit which is a British thermal unit. SI unit corresponding to the heat is joule. Calorie and the British thermal units are and the joule are related with this formula, that is 1 calorie is equal to 3.969 into 10 raised to minus 3 British thermal unit is equal to 4.1860 joule. Okay, so now from our observations or day-to-day life observation, what we can conclude here that the all objects have a physical property that determines whether or not the body is in a thermal equilibrium when placed in contact with the other object. So what it is? This property is called as the temperature. Okay, whether it is in the thermal equilibrium with the other object is nothing but the or this property of the material or the object is called as the temperature. Okay, and what it is gives us actually in principle that the degree of the hotness or the coldness is measured by the temperature, or else the what is the definition of the temperature? The the measure of the degree of hotness or the coldness of the object is called as the temperature. Okay, so now the temperature is a measure of the heat energy level. Okay, do remember it, temperature is a measure of the heat energy level, whereas the heat is a measure of the total internal energy contained in the body. So internal energy, which is made up of Okay, internal energy is made up of the potential energy as well as the kinetic energy, whereas the kinetic energy may be made up of the either vibrational and or the translational energy, or as both can be mixed together. So here we can understand that what is the mean by the heat, right? So is burning some kind of solid waste or as the woods, right? So this is the heat, and the temperature is nothing but the measurement of this. So temperature can be measured by the various scales, that is by the Kelvin scale bar, Celsius scale bar, and the Fahrenheit scale bar, right? So thermometers are generally used to gauge the temperature. So it is important to know the change in the temperature if the some q amount of the joule heat energy is absorbed or the given out by the object, right? So whether the heat is absorbed or the given out of the object, which is measured in terms of the change in its temperature, right? So the heat depends on the number of particles in the object, while the temperature does not depend on the number of particles in an object, because it is average measurement. So this is all about related to the concept of the heat and temperature.